Roll.
Bring the meeting to order. Town of Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners, regular meeting, Monday, August 14th, 2023. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, if we could, please. Thank you. May we all stand for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. And Commissioner Farrell, if you'll lead us in that.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to move forward with the adoption of the agenda. Is set. Or a motion to modify the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with the modification, removing item 7 from the consent agenda, making it old business number 1. Sorry, really.
Then we will move agenda item number 7 to old business number 1,
And that's about the building rehab.
about the building rehab. Is there a motion to approve the agenda is set as you've changed it?
With that modification, yes. Yeah, these are.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Franklin. If you would go forward, well, we're going to do citizen matters first. Is there any citizen that signed up that would like to speak at this moment?
Assistant Town Managers update.
No, we have citizen matters first, but which,
Yes, comment, Madam.
What comments at the end?
Number 3 on the second page.
okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do have a couple of updates tonight. One of your items in the consent agenda is to approve the schedule for the upcoming leaf collection season. So just a note there, staff has developed a map that will be added to the website to help clarify. It's pretty straightforward, east and west of Hillsborough Street. However, recognizing we have a number of new residents that may be learning Hillsborough Street and the kind of layout of the town, we thought a map would be a good addition. So we'll be adding that to the website. Pending approval of the collection schedule. Update on the splash pad, the part that is believed to be the key to completing the repair is due to arrive tomorrow. As soon as that arrives, our Parks and Rec and Public Works will be installing the part, and we're hopeful and anticipate that will cure the issue and allow the splash pad to reopen. Next Tuesday on August 22nd, a contingent from town of Carthage will be meeting with some town staff members to tour our downtown and discuss some of our downtown initiatives. We look forward to welcoming members of town of Carthage to Pittsburgh next Tuesday. And then finally on Friday, August 25th is our 9 a.m. is our celebration at the water treatment plant for the granular activated carbon project that was completed last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What time was that?
9 a.m. on the 25th.
25th, Friday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. Well, as we can see, our mayor is not here today. So I will be doing some updates. However, I'm not going to call them mayor updates. I call them Mayor Pro Tem updates. So I don't have those many, but I will begin with the Fair Association, which that's the dates for the fair is scheduled for September 21st, 2024. I'm sorry, 2023 to September 24th, 2023. So I'm going to ask all of you all to please participate. Bring your exhibitions such as flowers, fruits, vegetables, and put those on the exhibit. You might get a blue ribbon. So I'm going to put one flower on there for sure, but I don't know if I'll get a blue ribbon, but I'm hoping for one. So I would like to welcome all of you all to please come and participate in that. And you will have a great time. You may not be able to ride all the rides, but you'll have a good time. Bring your children. The next thing is the Triangle J Council of Governments has a new name, which has been voted on by the member governments, which is Central Pines Regional Council. So that is the new name for the Triangle J Council of Governments. So that is effective now. So those are the main two things which I have in reference to the updates. So we're going to go forward with an update from Commissioner Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro-Tem. PBA had a small amount of people last week, and but one thing that was brought to our attention, the Chatham News and Record has been sold to Neil Robbins, who is the owner of the North Carolina Adjournment. He plans on doing a little larger paper, more ads hopefully, and broader sports and more into what's going on in the legislature in North Carolina. So be looking forward to that paper when he comes out with it. I understand that they're having some problems with staff and all now, like everybody else is. So bear with him, he says, but has already purchased the News and Observer. And that's pretty much all I have from the PBA. We had a very short meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Shipp.
Yes. I was able to take 2 courses from the UNC School of Government, one on engaging the community in public issues and one on a successful strategic plan. So that was very good information as we are working to our strategic plan right now. I was able to attend the VinFast groundbreaking, which occurred 2 Fridays ago, I believe. It was hot, I know that, but that doesn't clarify these days. So nice event there, and good to see that project moving along from the EDC perspective. I also attended a housing and development summit that talked a lot about multifamily versus single family and how that is going to be critical going forward for things like affordable housing. And I attended on Tuesday, I think, of this week, the ribbon cutting for the SABA, the School of Arts for the Vose Academy, down on Robin's Nest Lane. So good to have them open. At the AHAC meeting on last Thursday, we talked about the county and their reimbursement of school impact fees for affordable housing projects and looking to make some updates and improvements to that policy. And then our next EDC meeting will be this Thursday, and I'll attend.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bose.
I don't have any updates this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all for those updates. Certainly appreciate it. So next we'll move forward with our public comment. So we have some people signed up. And if you haven't signed up, you can certainly speak with our wonderful town clerk. She will certainly sign you up. So we'll begin with Debbie Tornell, excuse me.
Mayor,
Yes.
we have, Susan, right, just sign us first.
Okay.
Agenda maybe.
Okay,
Mayor Pro-Tem, if I can interject quickly,
sir.
a number of the public comments will likely relate to the First Amendment of the Chatham Park Small Area Plan.
Okay,
Later in the agenda, there is an item when staff will give the board, kind of explain the framework and give an orientation to the developer request. However, there is no board action required this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You would just indicate your name and address, please, and limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my comments regarding Chatham Park. Susie Craig, Emeritus Professor of Environmental Science and Policy, 235 Mile Church Road. It's our land. We can do what we want with it. This was the response I received from the Chatham Park representative at the April 2023 community meeting. I had asked them why they wanted to change the road to run along the river buffer. Frankly, I was taken aback by their response. I realized that Pittsburgh town officials and staff, Pittsburgh taxpayers and residents of Chatham Park's extraterritorial jurisdiction deserve better than that. In fact, all residents who live within the Hall watershed, humans, non-human animals, and plants deserve better than that. For over a decade, we have foreseen the ecological impacts to the landscape and watershed that Chatham Park's North Village development will bring to the 2,225 acres along the Hall. Before the initial plan for the North Village was finalized this many years ago, changes were made, there were compromises, some semblance of protections were retained. The amendments that Chatham Park now wants will strip away those protections. It's our land. We can do what we want. The alternative may be true. However, a piece of land is not a mere substrate on which to build hundreds of homes. It is an intricate ecosystem and home to a diversity of wildlife and native plants. That piece of land exists and thrives along the Hall, a massive watershed that is home to beavers, otters, eagles, ospreys, and so much more. Not only is it an ecological wonderland, it is also a cultural one. People come by the dozens to tube, kayak, swim, hike, bird, and find solace on the Hawes banks. Every amendment that Chatham Park is proposing will irreversibly impact the ecological and cultural bounty of the Hall. Whether it is rerouting the road by the river, creating a paved path by the river, weakening of the tree coverage requirements, potentially making Bynum Beach Road a through road, using curb and gutters, boundary changes, and revising original plans for parks and parkland. It's our land. We can do what we want. Is this the same Chatham Park who claims to be building community here, encouraging us to live, work, play? Is this the same Chatham Park who on their website states, discover a new master plan community in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, dedicated to sustainable living, nature, and connections? We deserve better than this. The town of Pittsburgh deserves better than this. I am appealing to the Pittsburgh Town Board of Commissioners to reject Chatham Park's entire suite of amendments. Why? Because you deserve better than this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are you going to give us a copy of that? Thank you. Elaine Kioso is next, please.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Kioso, 1076 Rockrest Road, Pittsburgh. I'm here as Executive Director of the Hall River Assembly. Over the past month and a half or so, we put out a petition for people to sign, urging the town of Pittsburgh to reject the amendments that Chatham Park would like to make. We believe that although the current small area plan for North Village will already result in significant deforestation and environmental impacts, we think these proposed changes will add to that, impacting the Haw River, the wildlife corridor, the lower Haw River State Natural Area, and downstream water quality in Jordan Lake. So the petition is asking you to reject the proposed through road route that would go very close to the Haw River, rather than the earlier route that was further up the hill. This new route will cause more traffic and noise and runoff pollution into the river. We ask you to reject the plan for a 10-foot wide paved pedestrian bicycle greenway that would obviously be right along the river Typically, there's in a 30-foot cleared easement. Again, this is the lower Haw River State Natural Area that it is right up against. Any trail along the river should be natural surfaced with conservation goals in mind. And now, also keeping with the new state Haw River Trail. We ask you to reject any further weakening of tree coverage requirements and ensure Chatham Park complies with their prior commitment of 35% tree coverage of preserved existing trees, not new planted trees, but the existing forest within 2,000 feet of the Haw River. And we realize their proposal does not include using Bynum Beach Road for an access road for North Village, but we think that's always a possibility, and we want you to be very vigilant in stopping that from happening. This is an existing road in a floodplain that floods often and would very, very much change the character of Bynum and the lower Haw River State Natural Area. I will also echo what people said about, further changes that they'd like to make that have to do with curb and gutter, boundary changes within North Village, other changes to tree coverage planning that would basically sacrifice, more trees elsewhere. And their changes in parks and parkland that would reduce the amount of parks in North Village. Substituting parks in South Village is not going to do. And increasing the percentage of housing units that would be age restricted. So I don't know, that may have been my time up, but here are the names of the 1,552 people that signed this petition, either online or the paper petitions. These people care tremendously about the Haw River and the lower Haw River State Natural Area. Haw River Assembly has been asking you for 10 years to pressure Chatham Park to do more to preserve the environment that it's building in, a fragile and very special place.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. And thank you for bringing the petition and the names. Appreciate your information. Thank you very much. Next will be Debbie Turnell.
Hi, it's Debbie Turnell.
Thank you.
I'm at 282 Moore Mountain Road, and I wanted to give you guys your own copy. In 1984, my husband and I were living on the coast in Hyde County. And at that point, it was the first nesting of the bald eagles after DDT, and that was on family land. And since then, the eagles have made it from the coast all the way to Jordan Lake, and now they're coming up the Haw River. There is 2 reported nests along the river, and the town and CPI have gotten notification of that from Fish and Wildlife. I was able to point to a map where the one nest is, and it's right next to that road that they're proposing to build. I wanted to let you know that, when we moved here, we worked really hard with many organizations, Triangle Land Conservancy, the Haw River Assembly. We were instrumental in getting the Stevens Track Bynum Mill over to State Parks Natural Area. The 40 acres that surround your intake was also turned over to State Parks Natural Area. And the 82 acres of peg land on the other side of the dam also went over to the natural area. So we've been working really hard to try to make it so that the ecosystem is supported and not threatened. CPI is threatening that now. And when they sent out their survey for Eagle's Nest, they sent them out in August. Eagles are not nesting in August, they're nesting in the winter. So if you're walking through a forest and you're looking for an eagle's nest, you're going to have to be looking up and really looking hard because there's no traffic that is coming in from the eagles to the nest. When we lived on the coast, we were part of the hacking program at the Wildlife Refuge there at Manamesquite. I worked for Pungo National Wildlife I was part of banding of waterfowl, osprey, ducks, geese, management programs on the coast. And you hear my voice shaking a little bit because I'm invested in this ecosystem. I've worked hard to protect it. And Chatham Park, as nicely as I can say, has not proven to take care of it. They have taken land from individuals to put a roadway. They are not acting as good stewards. They are. So please do your best to reject anything that would threaten this ecosystem and the eagles. You've already heard from Fish and Wildlife. You've already heard from the state. There are endangered species here, and making this road come within 300 feet. You've already given up so much when you gave up the 2,000-foot buffer along the river, and now it's just going to be even eroded more. So thanks for your time. I hope you can help out the ecosystem and the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Secretary. Did you give, okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments and for your comments here as well as your written comments. Thank you very much. Amanda Robertson.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners. It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm Amanda Robertson, 244 Prince Creek here in Pittsburgh. So I have read many of the comments sent into this board and to our planning board here in Pittsburgh, and I'm here to echo many of those comments and those of Susie and Debbie and Elaine tonight, and express my deep concern that Chatham Park seeks yet more accommodations after the many allowances made thus far regarding adverse impacts on the environment, natural areas, waterways, and the Haw River. I urge you to please be cautious as you navigate these accommodations suggested by Chatham Park's legal team and balance it with the public comments of Pittsburgh's citizens and those who live in the ETJ, including your very own concerns about the already excessive development of these green spaces. There is much to consider. Changes in the numbers are not trivial. For example, an increase in dwelling units to replace the office space allowances probably means yet more people will be working outside of Pittsburgh and Chatham Park or in Chatham County, increasing the numbers who can commute across county lines to work, increasing fossil fuel usage and spending money in other communities instead of here at home with our own local businesses. This can have a huge impact on the future prosperity of our entire community, not to mention those essential natural resources that I just referenced that draw so many future residents and visitors to Pittsburgh and to Chatham County. Thank you for your very deep thought considering this request from Chatham Park.
Thank you, Mrs. Robertson. Would you like to give us a copy? Yes. Thank you. Next, we have Liz Cullington.
Going to time myself as well,
Okay,
in case I find I have 20 extra seconds.
okay.
Liz Cullington, 390 Rocky Hills Road, Pittsburgh. You already approved one plan, so you do not have to agree to any changes that are unnecessary, detrimental, or not fully justified, or not fully explained. Chatham Park investors' short-term profit interests or development preferences are not valid reasons for any changes that are not in the long-term public interest. Secondly, it is what is or is not spelled out in the plan that will matter going forward, and not what they merely say now they will or won't do. At the planning board, some issues were dismissed with we won't do that, with no commitment to actually change the proposed plan. I have already submitted extensive written comments, which I hope you've had a chance to at least see in your inbox. And I can't explain in 3 minutes what is wrong with all these changes. However, with so many significant changes, I urge you to hold a dedicated workshop meeting, or even two. You could do just one on parks. Please look closely at the many boundary and land use changes. There will be little future job creation if Chatham Park is not required to retain dedicated non-residential area for future job growth, rather than converting it to housing now. The revised road route that loops all the way to the Hall makes no sense. And the large amount of traffic it would have to carry makes a mockery of the low density development bands there. You should require a more logical and central route. For instance, the more sensible route shown in their very own revised traffic demand model right in this plan, which is further from the river. However, even so, there would still be some roadways in that area. The language requiring swales rather than curb and gutter is so inadequate, it could actually apply nowhere. Some of you may remember from a number of years ago about all the innovative stormwater devices that Chatham Park would employ. However, from the street cross sections in this plan, it turns out these are not to be the norm and not even mandatory in the most vulnerable areas. You should require that all types of roads, streets, and alleys within 1,000 feet of the Hall utilize curb cutouts, swales, tree wells, and other bioretention features instead of curb and gutter. This should be mandatory where there are stream crossings. It should also be a townwide standard and for Chatham Park's current and future developments. Chatham Park could and should have been a leader in this way. While there is talk of some eventual changes to the stormwater element and to some town road standards, this revision needs to be made now. New plan lacks parks for new residents and removes one for no good reason, but there's another big problem. If the plan continues to allow Chatham Park to completely construct some or any new parks, the public facilities element requires them to only minimally fund park development. Completed parks cost many times that. And the element then allows them to use that expense to replace further future park acreage. This is undesirable and unnecessary, as neither the master plan or element require parks be finished before the new residents arrive. That issue was not addressed last time and must be revisited now since Chatham Park proposes changes to those specifics. I urge you not to add new mistakes to old ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clinton. Thank you. The next speaker will be Randy Voller.
Thank you, Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin. I'm not here to speak about those issues. I'm here to talk about something just as interesting, NCDOT. Last week, we had a really good meeting at our offices, the Alpha Center. Our mayor was able to attend along with Commissioner Vose. Commissioner Shipp was going to attend and was communicating with us, but something came up at the end with work. But I've handed you out an update, which I think is really excellent news. Not only were they able to hear the concerns of property owners, specifically the two properties right on the corner and how the project could be made more walkable and be made better. But in the discussion, we brought up this issue of flooding that's been occurring, as we all know, on Oakwood Drive and Park Drive, but specifically Oakwood, and how the property owner would be willing to cooperate with the town of Pittsboro and NCDOT on some type of detention pond or some methodology of handling the pre-project, post-project water discharge. Well, a week later after this meeting, they've sent this email that they're interested in doing so. And I think that that's excellent news, because if we could start addressing that flooding issue upstream, it would really be helpful for all those citizens that live on Oakwood and on Park Drive. And I think that this is a great segue into town records. Now that we have more and more people coming to town and our tax base is growing, it was evident at this meeting that some of the records that Richard Bullock, the surveyor, had sent to DOT and to previous town planners hadn't somehow gotten through. And I'm hoping as we go forward with your budgets, future mayorship, that we'll be able to actually put more money toward maybe town records being in the cloud, collecting all of these old records that we have, so that when we go back and want to look at the history, we're not fumbling around. So for example, I've talked to some members of our town staff and emailed them about the Creedle Street Basin project we did years ago, which was a project to address I&I. And I was told that some of those records are missing. And I assured them that the town had in fact gotten grant monies and invested time in relining those sewer lines down Salisbury. And somewhere along the line, we've got to do a better job of retaining records and making them available to the elected board, its staff and the citizens. But this one I'm really proud of, and I hope you take a look at this. And I appreciate Commissioner Vose you coming. And I wish Cindy were here because she really spoke to that issue of flooding. And I look forward to how we can work together and address that issue on Oakwood and Park Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin. Next, we have Joy Hewitt, please.
Joy Hewitt, 3069 Silk Coat, Gum Springs Road, Pittsboro, North Carolina. Town board members, please require the maximum tree coverage possible within North Village. Don't allow developers to minimize shade trees in the village with tree planting areas counting already required stream buffers. Please require all much needed park acreage to be within the boundaries of North Village. Don't allow developers to use land in other parts of the county to say they meet needs of residents in the town for these natural areas. Protecting the watershed of the Haw River should be your priority in considering these amendments. We had the hottest days recorded on the planet this July. Trees and greenery are our universal air conditioners. Removing forest and increasing impermeable surfaces with heat generating paving and rooftops creates problems for cooling, maintaining clean air and water quality. If you allow Chatham Park developers to reduce parks and minimize essential tree coverage near the river in their small area plan amendments, you will be promoting their harmful practices to the detriment of the current community you serve and future residents of their development. In the densely crowded conditions CPI proposes increasing, not reducing natural areas is essential. You must do all you can to protect water quality and biodiversity along the Haw River. Protect our watershed with unpaved trails instead of paved greenways and more preserved tree buffers near the river. Chatham Park developers have gotten almost everything they wanted. Enough is enough. I urge you to consider your duties to future generations who will have to live with the decisions you make. Save more trees, protect the river as much as possible, and put all required parkland in the North Village within the small area plan boundaries. Thank you. There's more written comments that I've already given Ms. Bailey.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hewitt. Is there anyone online, perhaps?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone that did not sign up and would like to make a comment at this time and didn't have the opportunity to sign? Thank you all very much. Next, we'll move forward with our consent agenda, which will require a motion to approve the consent agenda or modify it.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised consent agenda with the 8 items.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So basically, the consent agenda includes the minutes, the curb leaf collection schedule, community development block grant, Chatham Park landscaping element text amendment, budget amendment for the fiscal year 2023-2024 carryover, Pittsburgh Downtown Advisory Board meeting schedule, facade improvement grant program, policy and application, motion sponsorship, funding request program, policy and application. And that there ends our consent agenda. Let's move forward with our public hearings if we could, please. We need a motion.
Uh,
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing regarding the ordinance to change the mayor term from 2 to 4 years. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes, who's going to lead that discussion, please, in reference to changing the mayor term from 2 years to 4 years? This was placed on there for, as I said, discussion purposes, so people, that the public would be aware that there's a possibility of changing that, the mayor term from the 2 years to the 4 years. So, Mr. Jackson, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So at your last board meeting on July 24th, the board approved a resolution to consider an ordinance amendment to change the length of term of the mayor, office of mayor from 2 years currently to 4 years. So a part of that process requires a public hearing. And so having met the 10-day notice requirement, the public hearing is in order this evening. Subsequent on August 28th, it will be appropriate to consider the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the board?
I'll just say, I think it's important to note that it's intended to take effect in 2025. So that would be the next, or with the next election of the mayor. That would align. So there would be 2 commissioners and the mayor in an election, and then 3 commissioners in the next election. So the board change potential would be equal at that point.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments, concerns? And basically, I would just like to make a comment in reference to changing the term. It would be more consistent in terms of being able to handle or the business of the town more easily when someone has a more consistent term, and that way can continue to work forward with the board as well as with our town manager. So basically, I am in favor of that particular change. So next we'll move forward. We need to hold that one. We've held that public hearing, so do we need to close that one or go forward with the next?
Public signed up.
Anybody? Let me see. Wait. Thank you. Mr. Bowler.
Apparently, this is such a hot item that you only got one former official. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and town board members. My name is Randy Bowler, and I reside at 21 Randolph Court. I'm addressing you this evening as the former mayor of Pittsburgh and the governing affairs liaison for the Orange County Association of Realtors, also known as OCHAR. An official letter from OCHAR will be submitted for this record once President Rachel Elliott returns from her sojourn and executed. Many of you will remember Jim Hinckley, who served on the town planning board years ago and ran for town board in 2007. I have fond memories of Jim, and I'm sure Pam does as well. Jim was the first person I recall who made a point to me nearly 18 years ago that the term of Pittsburgh as mayor should be extended to 4 years. I concur with Jim and support the resolution to extend the term for the Pittsburgh mayor from 2 years to 4 years effective on the regular municipal election to be held in November of 2025 and every 4 years thereafter. In fact, this lines up with Mayor of Sanford is every 4 years, and I believe the mayor of Cary is every 4 years. The others in the district are too. So it makes a lot of sense. In addition, I think if we're considering this and we're going to look at other ways to improve how our board operates, I believe that the town should also expand its board membership to 7, with the mayor acting as the tie-breaking vote if the board is deadlocked 3-3. This is in line with the current town charter that allows the mayor to vote in order to break a tie. If, like, for instance, this evening you had Commissioner Bonitz here and someone else was missing, the mayor could break the vote, could break the tie. Finally, with the current growth projections for the town, It's reasonable to revisit previous discussions with the board to create residency districts similar to those utilized in Chatham County for its election of county commissioners, wherein a board member would be required to reside in a specific district in town, but would run for office town-wide. These districts would allow for the growth of population and geography that we're going to see over the next 40 years. And according to Robert Joyce, the Charles Edwin Hinsdale Professor of Public Law and Government at the UNC School of Government, would not be required to have an equal population, since all voters in the town could vote for all commissioners, and the districts would only be used for a residency requirement. The reason Joyce offered was that since all voters in the county can vote for all 5 commissioners and the districts are used only for residency requirement, there is no legal mandate to ensure that each district is equal in population for the system that we use in Chatham County. I learned this when the county actually had a task force and they were considering expanding their board, and he presented that information to that task force. In closing, I support the resolution to support the mayor's term extending to 4 years beginning in 2025. I hope that the town will take this opportunity to evaluate other options for its elected board and its composition as well. Respectfully, Randolph Fuller. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowler. Yes.
Hi, Liv Collington, 390 Rocky Hills Road. I didn't sign up to speak for this because I felt like you probably would approve the particular change of 2 years to 4 years, and I support that. But since former Mayor Baller got up and said what he did, I felt compelled to get up here and briefly respond. Firstly, I think what he is suggesting is fine, maybe far off into the future. Right now, we have a heck of a time recruiting anybody to serve on the board. Apparently, people are more willing to run for the town board than they are to serve on the planning board. But in the meantime, we have a very hard time recruiting people to serve in any capacity on the board, on the planning board, on the parks board, whatever. Therefore, restricting where they can live is just going to make it harder, and I suspect reduce the quality of the candidates. So I feel that's something that should be just shoved off into the future. And that likewise applies if we're having a hard enough time finding a competitor to Mr. Shipp for the mayorship, or, you know, more than like just 2 candidates for each seat that's open on the upcoming ballot. Expanding the number of seats is going to like make that even harder. So while I'm not totally opposed to what he is suggesting, I think we need to get a whole lot bigger and more homogeneous before those would be appropriate. And I rather dread us becoming homogeneous. And right now, residency districts would mean that the overnight, this border would be dominated by people who live in Chatham Park. And the majority of those people are going to be people who haven't been here very long. And I'm not sure I want to see that. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cullen. Thank you. Next public hearing item. The volunteer.
We need to close.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Next, we move forward with voluntary noncontiguous annexation issue. We need to make a motion to go into public hearing. Yeah. All in favor?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro-Tem. So Holly will present this item.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. Molly Boyle, Senior Planner. Tonight, we have a voluntary non-contiguous annexation request from Chatham Park Commerce Center LLC. This is a 16.659 acre tract at Eubanks Road and Highway 64 Business East. Staff investigated the sufficiency of the request and certified it. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Chatham News and Record on August 3rd in accordance with NCGS 158.2. And if you have any questions, I'll take them, and hearing none, we can go ahead with the public hearing.
Is there anyone signed up to speak on this particular topic? Anyone? Commissioners? No, I don't have any additional questions. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the annexation request.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Go out of public
You
hearing.
have to go out of the public hearing because
You need to close your public hearing.
public hearing,
Gonna amend the floor.
motion to close.
I'll amend to close the public hearing with the motion to approve the annexation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next we move forward with the one item of old business that we had placed. Was the building rehab grant building rehab grant program. And it's more so for discussion, but we'll go ahead.
Okay. Staff is proposing a policy and process to be able to apply for a building rehab grant. This is an incentive and an economic development tool to provide assistance with significant improvement and rehabilitation of downtown properties. The building rehab grant would provide matching grants to encourage improvements to downtown buildings and to make them more attractive for new, existing and expanding businesses. So some examples of improvements include plumbing, electrical, HVAC, roofing, construction for accessibility, clearance and fire code, painting, flooring, and masonry work. The town will reimburse up to 50% of eligible costs, and the grant can be given up to $10,000. The town board allocated a total of $50,000 towards both the building rehab grant and the facade grant program for this fiscal year. And grants will be awarded based on that availability of funding.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition, I will just make a comment in reference to that. When the Pittsburgh Welcome Center was given funds to update that, it was a situation of concern because of public money going to a private individual or a private person's building. So that was one reason why I wanted to put this on here, but this is a total different type of situation. It is one which you have indicated where in this particular rehab program, the individual or the owner has to actually they have to meet 50%, I guess that's how it is. There has to be put forward from the owner and then a grant from the town. So that is entirely different from what had occurred. And it was of concern for the commissioners at that time when the Welcome Center, when those funds, the town funds were given to the Welcome Center. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the building rehab policy.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much for that clarification. Certainly do appreciate it. Look forward to that and the others. Thank you. So next we'll go forward with our new business. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this first new business item, Chatham Park Investors has plans to modify two intersections in the area of Mosaic and Northwood. First intersection is the intersection of US 15501 and Northwood Boulevard, Russet Run. And the second intersection is 15501 and Mosaic Boulevard and Charger Boulevard. The improvements include converting the overhead utilities to underground utilities, and replacing the current traffic signals with mast arm poles to suspend the traffic signal heads from the mast arm poles. This is largely a safety and efficiency project. Also, it has pedestrian enhancements. Pedestrian traffic signals will be installed at the crosswalks at these two locations. The project was initiated by Chatham Park investors. Later, NCDOT became a partner and agreed to contribute funding. The total project cost is just over $2.2 million. NCDOT will reimburse just over 50% at $1.25 million. So the reason that the town is involved is to facilitate the transaction. NCDOT cannot enter the agreement with the private entity. And so there is an agreement between NCDOT and the town, and a corresponding agreement between the town and Chatham Park investors to complete the transaction. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Morgan DeWitt is also here. She's been very involved in the details of this and could answer questions as well.
Questions from commissioners?
I would just want to clarify for the public that the agreement between Chatham Park and the town cover any additional cost over this estimate would be covered by Chatham Park, and the town is not liable for any additional cost. So, and the town will be reimbursed for administrative expenses related to this also.
Both are correct.
Any additional comments, concerns? If not, then let's move forward with the budget amendment for the NCDOT. Well, actually, we need to vote on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreements for the intersection improvements.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next, let's move in for the budget amendment for NCDOT. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, so Mayor Pro Tem, this item is the complementary item to the agreement with Chatham Park investors. This budget amendment is necessary because this is a reimbursement agreement. It is necessary for us to recognize that reimbursement by amending the FY 23-24 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So we need to go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Yes, next we'll have Ms. Thompson again to discuss this for Downtown Advisory Board resolution amendment, and then
The Board of Commissioners adopted this resolution originally on January 23rd of this year. And we are recommending one change, and that is to strike having a representative from Chatham County Planning Department, and instead requesting that it be the planning director or their, which is slightly different than what the memo shows.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion to adopt the amended resolution.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Ms. Thompson, it's you again.
All right. So we have two ex officio member positions available on the Downtown Advisory Board. We've been searching for a high school student for about a year now, and we were lucky enough to find someone that's interested in being on the board, and that is Vose. The Downtown Advisory Board met on July the 12th and recommended approval to appoint Mr. Vose to the Downtown Advisory Board with a vote of 10-0. And staff recommends consideration of these board members as desired to the Downtown Advisory Board.
Thank you.
I'll I just want to make the same, or if we need to make the same change in this, the planning director or their designee as the appointee,
Okay,
so that a different designee doesn't need to come back to us.
correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Wayland Vose and the planning director or their designee.
You should.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. So next, we'll move forward with our next item. Mr. Cohen Tingle. Thank you. I like that red suit.
Thank you very much. Ward, just for you.
Thank you.
Here this evening to introduce our next segment, which is going to feature Molly Boyle, who is our senior planner. And her remarks are going to center this evening on the staff evaluation of the application for the Chatham Park North Village Small Area Plan amendments. I do want to point out that these comments will continue into your next meeting, not necessarily in the order they're taking place this evening, but I did want to make sure that everyone understood that Ms. Boyle's comments reflect a staff perspective. Chatham Park will be providing their own. There are also other members of the staff here to help out as she's doing her presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, everybody. Back up again. Go ahead and get my presentation going. Again, I'm Molly Boyle, Senior Planner. I'll be giving the staff presentation for this item this evening. That's the Chatham Park North Village Small Area Plan Amendment. So I'll begin with a little bit of background on the North Village Small Area Plan and also the review procedures for it. So the plan in its current state is adopted in October 2021. I believe several of you were on the board at that point in time. And this of Chatham Park, the Chatham Park Plan Development District that are north of Highway 64. It's a guide for development in North Village along with the master plan and elements. So it doesn't supplant master plan and elements, but development in North Village. The applicant has, of course, submitted an amendment for review. And one thing we want you to know is that only proposed changes to the amendment are up for your consideration. So anything that's being deleted, anything that's being added, changes in the maps, that's all up for your consideration, but not the other parts of the plan. Small area plans for Chatham Park follow the approved review process that was approved by the Board of Commissioners in 2015. That's in your packets as attachment 1. And comment period. So in that period, you're required, starting this evening, you're required to accept public comment, both written and verbal from the public. And the earliest you can act on this item is at the end of that 2-week public comment period. So that's why when Kent and Randy were explaining to you that you could not vote this evening, that's why. So you have to allow 2 weeks to receive public comment. And so the earliest you'll be able to vote will be August 28th. The objectives for this evening were to accept public comment, which you've done so far. And again, you'll do that again on the 28th. The staff presentation of the analysis, which is going on now. And please hold your questions to the end. And then we'll go into a question and answer session with the applicant. And so we'll be able to get into the meat of your questions at that time. And again, you won't be voting on this item this evening. Once you reach a good break point in your discussion, we'll move to continue this to the 28th for further public comment and discussion and potentially a vote. I'm focusing my presentation of the staff analysis on areas where I've heard the most debate. Again, anything in the staff analysis, obviously, if you have questions, just let me know during the question and answer session. So for Chapter 3 transportation, there's been a lot of concerns about the spine road, is what we've called it in the staff analysis. That's the road, the residential road proposed closer to the Haw River. You've heard some of those comments this evening as well. Earlier on, there was some confusion in the community information meeting and in the first planning board meeting where some people thought that was Eubanks Road. I'll show you in a minute in figure 3.2, Eubanks Road, it's actually being realigned in a more east-west direction, and the road in question closer to the Haw is a proposed town road. It's a 2-lane residential road. To be clear, what I've heard from the public, they're not concerned about the level of service of the road, whether it's Eubanks or a two-lane residential street. They're concerned about any development, any road going in close to the Haw River. So from staff's perspective, which is again technical in nature, the location will be permissible as long as it meets all the necessary regulations. So I included some of those in the staff analysis. It's not an exhaustive list, but land disturbance permitting, riparian buffer requirements, any of the subject Chatham Park elements, staff would vet the road location for consistency with all of those. And in the staff analysis, I made the point that the road locations are conceptual. That's not to say that you can't have comments on them. I just like to make that point when we're talking about a transit plan and you're showing roads that maybe haven't been constructed yet. When you get to the design phase of a road and you actually get site data, sometimes the road will have to vary slightly depending on the site conditions that are out there. But the applicant is showing you the intended routes. So that is up for your consideration this evening. And here's the picture of figure 3.2 that shows on the left-hand side what's currently in the plan and on the right-hand side what's proposed. So you'll see in the current version, Eubanks Road running north and south in green. And then here in the proposed change, Eubanks is running in an east-west direction here in blue. And this is that spine road that people have been talking about, the proposed two-lane residential road in purple. So for Chapter 5 open space, I heard a lot of concerns about tree protection, perceived loss of tree protection, particularly as illustrated in figure 5.2. So I'll show you that just right here. So you see on the left what's currently in the plan, and again on the right what's proposed. And these orange stars denote tree coverage planning areas. And so you'll note there is a marked decrease in the number of tree coverage planning areas shown in the proposed and the revised map. So I think it's important to get into the difference between a tree coverage planning area and a tree coverage area. This is kind of where we get into semantics. But so I included definitions in the analysis. And if you don't mind, I'll just read from that here. Tree coverage planning areas are defined as an area of land that contains either a village center, a shopping center, a single family development, or the portion of section 7.1 that is located on the north side of Russet Run Road, together with the existing trees and or new trees needed to satisfy tree coverage area requirements. So when we talk about interpreting ordinances and plans, there's something in planning we follow, the rules of thumb. And one of those is the inclusion of one implies the exclusion of the other. So here in the definition of a tree coverage planning area, the applicant has clearly defined what kinds of development kick something into being considered a tree coverage planning area. So if it's A, B, C, and D, that means it's not the rest of the alphabet. A tree coverage planning area is A through D. Those definitions have not changed. They're not proposed to be changed. So if you're seeing differences in the map, which you are, you're seeing a decrease in the number of tree coverage planning areas. That means the type of development that's being proposed has changed. So instead of, whereas before something was, the development there indicated that there was a tree coverage planning area. Now a different kind of development is proposed to go there. And so it's no longer a tree coverage planning area. All that being said, every time the applicant submits development plans to us, we're vetting it for compliance with the tree coverage area requirements. So that's in the tree protection element, and specifically in tables 1 through 3 under tree coverage standards. Those apply to anything that the applicant submits to us, and we're always going to look for that. We can get more into that in the question answer session. Again, that gets into semantics a bit. And finally, Chapter 9, public facilities. Oh, yes.
Could you go back to that other slide, the map?
This one? Yeah.
Yes. Now tell me the differences between that again.
So there's a decrease in the number of tree coverage planning areas. So these orange stars on the left in the current version, and then in the revised version here, you're seeing a decrease in the number of tree coverage planning areas. But that doesn't mean that tree coverage area requirements don't apply whenever they submit development plans to us.
But in the second, you're saying that the type of coverage it is less.
No, so the type of development that's being proposed is different, and it no longer constitutes a tree coverage planning area, but it's still subject to tree coverage area requirements.
Thank you.
Yes. So Chapter 9, I've heard a lot of concerns about the reduction in parkland. So in your packets, in your spiral bound books and the actual amendment on the second page, there's a summary from the applicant where the applicant explains the proposed changes and their reasoning behind it. And what the applicant is stating is that if they've discovered as development has gone on, if they continue to build parks as they've planned originally, once they hit 667 acres of parkland is going to be overrepresented in the north and underrepresented in South and Southeast Village. So to confirm, the applicant still has to provide 1/33 acre of parkland per dwelling unit. That's required in the master plan. And if they build the maximum number of residences that they can in Chatham Park, which is 22,000, that equates to 667 acres. They're also still required to provide that parkland at an accelerated rate. So you remember that 1/25 acre per dwelling unit. The idea behind that is just to bring that parkland online faster so that it's available for residents. None of that's changing. That's all still required. And finally, originally in the proposal, the applicant was requesting to allocate parkland from Southeast Village Metro Park, which is a future site. It's in the furthest southeasternmost corner of Chatham Park, to North Village. And staff felt that that wasn't consistent with some of the objectives in the public facilities element and recommended some additional language be added to the plan. I won't read all of that in full because it's a bit lengthy, but it's in your cover memo and also at the end of the staff analysis and attachment 3. In a nutshell, the idea is that if the applicant exceeds a certain number of dwelling units in North Village, at that point, they either have to provide additional parkland themselves in and around North Village, or they have to submit a payment in lieu to the town so the town can construct that parkland itself. And here just we have the map, obviously North Village all the way at the top, and down here in the south, southeasternmost corner, this is the Southeast Village Metro site. And with that, I'll ask the applicant, Chuck Smith is here with Chatham Park Investors. He can come to the podium. He'll be able to answer questions, and I'll also be able to answer questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say one thing at the beginning. Molly has done a great job through this process. If y'all don't know that, you should know it. And it's not because everything she said has made me happy. There have been many things I would have preferred different answers, but she's been very consistent in her treatment of honoring the process and following the rules and listening to people. And that needs to be said first thing. Secondly, I'm not going to give a presentation. I'm here to answer questions. There are a number of provocative things that have been said this evening. The only thing I'm going to respond to is to say, we have never, ever said it's our land. We can do what we want to do. We have never said that because it's not, even if I wanted to be true, it's not true. Anytime you're in a town limits or an ETJ, you follow rules, and you guys are involved in the process. Every other municipality I've been involved with is involved in that process. We did not say that. So I'm not saying someone at the community, can't remember the lady's name, but I know she was at our community meeting. Somebody may have said it wasn't us. So that's the only thing I'm going to respond to, and just be available for your questions.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I do. I have numerous. I'd rather not go first, but might as well get it over, right? A couple of minor typo errors, Chuck. Bear with me. A couple of questions I had regarding the 17-acre park in section 1.2 and the Hourglass Park being removed. Any reason for that?
Well, specifically, I can give you specifics on the Hourglass Park. When we would love to create a body of water, then we're trying to do that. We're still trying to do that. Whenever we go down a few feet, this may surprise you in Chatham County, but we find rock. And in that case, we were probably needing to go down about 25 feet. And after a few feet again, it was rock from there on. So we couldn't do it in that location. But I think your real point is, are we reducing the number of parks we're providing? And I've answered this a few different ways, and it may not be completely straightforward unless you're in the minutia of the requirements, but we have a requirement to provide a certain amount of parkland per dwelling unit. And we can't do anything less than that. So what's happened during this process is that when you come in with a small area plan, you generally have this before development. You have no development that's gone on, so you're not comparing anything to reality. You're comparing it to what the maximum could be. As we've gone through both the construction within the North Village and what we see coming, we're not going to hit the maximum. So therefore, we're not going to be hitting what the maximum requirement would be for parks in the North Village. We will meet the requirement, but it will not exceed what the requirements tell us we have per dwelling unit. So that's affecting those particular parks. But at the same time, there are a number of parks that are not shown on there that are going to be recreation facilities that are not going to be dedicated to the town. These are what we're showing you there is what's dedicated to the town for your ownership. There are going to be plenty of other amenities, recreation amenities that we're going to have within the project that the public will have access to, but you will not own. And so we're just not showing those on that plan. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. On page 38, check there, and I could be wrong about this too, but it says the 50-acre community park, section 6.3. In the ledger, it has it at 70 acres.
Well, originally in that acreage, it was including a school site. I think it said park and school back at the beginning of when we had the original small area plan. That 6.3 is down to the area south of Eubanks Road. Basically, we still have a park there. We no longer have a school site there that was part of that. That school site was going to be somewhere around 25 acres. And the school itself, the school system decided they did not want that location. And so we've since reached an agreement with them on the location where at their December school board meeting, they came up with an agreement on other land that we had suggested, which in this case is on Grant Drive in section 7.1. And that's been signed off by them. And I believe, and Molly can correct me, but I think Chris Blythe with the school system has been part of the review process just to confirm those things. And
I see that there, but it did say right here that it contains 50 acres for a community park. And then it also says fire station, reservation site, and possible private school site. But it's also adjacent to the future YMCA. Is that correct? Is that what?
The fire station is still, you've been involved in this. Fire station is still in that location. The YMCA is still adjacent to the park. Those amenities and public facilities are still adjacent to that parkland.
So are we looking at this park to be in 6.3, 70 acres?
Well, the 70 acres again included the school site. The schools moved there. So that part of that green is no longer part of there as part of a school site.
You're going to include a community park there.
Oh, absolutely. That's under design right now. We've been in conversations with your recreation director just to confirm some of the amenities that are facilities that she wants to see there. That is going to be, if it's not the next park, it's the next to the next park, but I'm almost certain that it's going to be the next park we construct. The next park we provide in town is going to be that park. We're under construction right now with the streets that are adjacent to it and the utilities that are adjacent to it, setting it up for that construction and that process where the plan will come before the town.
I think the confusion might be figure 210 that shows 70 acres in section 6.3 still.
What figure you're referring to?
The next one in the book, figure 210. So for section 6.3 park, it shows 70 acres on the revised map.
Oh, okay. Well, some of that again is a school, so that goes a little bit off. I think that this is the exact acreage within that area in green is available for the park. What we've been going with, some of the requirements of the public facilities element, we cannot dedicate more than 65% of what you consider to be usable land. So a portion of that land is steeper slopes, and we're not going to dedicate it to the town. You choose to accept.
And that was in this section 6.3.
That's down in the southern part of that section where you'll get exact, as we did with the park in the south, you'll see topography and other things that are part of the dedication before you have to go through the acceptance of that.
Just a quick point. Just thank you guys on the Chatham Parkway and the Charlie Brooks and Eubanks eliminating all those creek crossings and all. I think it was 4 or 5 that was possibly eliminated. That's really appreciate that. In the North Village, it says we have 1,000 acres of open space, correct?
That's what.
Now, is that just going to leave us 1,320 left on our total open space for the South Village? We're just going to have 320 acres?
That is an estimation of what I'm projecting open space to be.
In the Southern Village?
In the North Village. There'll be, I'm projecting, and this is me, we haven't, but when you go through the different requirements we've got and different things that we've already provided, I think we're going to be close to 50% open space by true open space definition over the whole project. So that's 3,500 acres total. Now, some of, when I say that, again, when I say that in our community meetings, that upsets some people because like a park, I'm not considering, I think in that exact, the drawing that you're looking at, it refers to the park acreage being part of that 1,000 acres because your UDO allows your UDO considers parks to be open space. And so we aren't allowed to do that within our requirements at Chatham Park. I'm just pointing out that roughly that many acres is going to be preserved as either open space or park space. And that's an important number. Now, again, some people don't consider some of the things we call open space to be, they would prefer to see 3,000 acres of untouched forest. But you have a variety of things in your UDO. I'm just comparing it to what we've got in our open space element that is considered to be open space.
One other question. I'm not just hooked on the parks, but I kind of just went through that area. The Malott,
yes, sir.
Property. 20 acres of that Malott property is going as a park and 8 acres into the I got it on page 40.
But yes, sir.
Other 8, it's
approximately
8 acres.
That's approximately a 26, 28, 30 acres. I'm not sure. We haven't finalized the exact dimensions of that yet, but for the accounting of this, and it doesn't show up, when you show some of the land use plans, I think that was referred to earlier, it doesn't show that Malott Park is green, but that's our property. It's all in the, and part of the reason for moving that from your earlier question about the Hourglass Park was we just shifted to get more centrally located since we did have the Malott property as part of what we're developing together there.
Okay.
And so there's a portion of that in the, doesn't quite show up on that drawing, but, figure 211, I think. 210. Yeah, so you can see where the park on the Malat land is located, and then we're just combining Chatham Park land south of that to make up the total park dedication when we get to that point. I believe that will be the next park. We're gonna be doing those two parks as our next dedications and our next constructions. So that'll happen early on here. And by the way, that we've also been working with Katie on this part too. And I think one of the suggestions she came back with, for example, is that we include space for a community center there. That would be something you might get to at some point in your future of developing, but that we would allow space for that there, and that we're including that on that site.
Thank you. Bynum Beach Road, I'm very concerned about that. About 66 years here, I've seen that road. I can have flooded numerous times when the river's been up. I would like staff to weigh heavily on this. I would like to see no access from Bynum Beach Road. I don't think the road is even accessible for single vehicle now. I know it would have to have quite a bit of improvements, but I wouldn't even want to have emergency access on that road.
I can speak a little bit to that. So the applicant isn't proposing any connection to Bynum Beach Road in there. We've talked about that before. The applicant also isn't expressing any intention to. I've reviewed it with our project engineer, and we don't feel like it would be likely that town staff would compel the connection. It's kind of hard to answer that in a vacuum without a development plan. But Bynum Beach Road is in floodplain. I don't think, I won't speak for the applicant, but it wouldn't be cost effective to try to make a connection there. And I just, again, it's hard to answer in a vacuum, but I don't see it likely that we would try to compel that connection given the environmental sensitivity.
That in writing, always is just a verbal.
I think that's just,
I'm just,
yeah, I think that's just a verbal. What the applicant has stated before is that they have no intention, but basically, for want of a better way of putting it, if we made them do it, then they would do that. And there's nothing proposed in the amendment for them to make that connection.
It's going to be on you in a few years when we're talking about fire safety.
Well, and I mean, that is the other point I want to make, is that our require emergency access now. So there's a potential that in the future, now Bynum Beach Road may not be the one, Hearn Road may be the one. But when we see future subdivision plans come in, those, at least an emergency connection to those roads may be required to meet our UDO requirements of multiple points of access. But that's not, it's not stated either way here in the small area plan. I think that's okay. But as development plans come in, there's a potential of for example, an emergency connection to Hearn Road for development in that area.
We've been pretty consistent saying we're going to follow your UDO requirements. And if something falls short of that because you consider some other factors in there that may lead you to say, okay, we don't want to make this connection, that's going to be up to you. That's not up to us. But we, as Molly said, we're not proposing to make the connection. But your UDO is going to, when we turn in subdivision plans up there, it's telling us to make connections at different places. And as stubs, I mean, it's not even connecting to existing roads. It's saying stub our roads into property for future. Because how many subdivisions have been approved in this county where somebody ran a cul-de-sac down to the end of the property and it didn't take it all the way to the property line to connect it to future development? It's happened forever. And you're trying to get away from that now. So again, we're not trying to connect. We aren't proposing to connect. I've been answering the same question for at least 7 years to the Bynum residents and saying the same thing. We won't.
We also add that Hearn Road in on that.
It's the only reason that will be connected is if you say you want an emergency connection, we aren't proposing to connect a road there. That'll be up to you.
All right, thank you.
And I'll put that in writing if you want to see that, or you can take me at my word.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
Got a couple more questions, but I'll pass the baton to someone else.
A few points and thoughts. I do think that revision of plans is important as time goes on, and we've revised UDO multiple times since it's been passed. We finally recently revised our land use plan. So as things change over time, I think it's important to make changes to plans as we have better information. Other property around that's been acquired, changing sites for the hospital site and the school site and all those things. If we don't update our plans with the new realities, then it's not going to be a good plan or a useful plan. With that being said, I think that this process is very confusing for a lot of us. And there's a lot of material in this. This is just the revisions to the small area plan, not even the whole small area plan. So, just if we can all work together, if we go forward with additional small area plans and make them more concise in meeting the requirements, I think that will help us move forward for anything we do. Actually, our UDO could be shorter too. But so that's just said there. I think some things that have been confusing, are the road sections and the placement and things like that. And and Chuck, I agree with you. I appreciate Molly and your taking us through all of this and explaining, and that, what's shown on that map, what's shown on the original map and the revised map are not going to be the only roads in the North Village. There will be, lots of additional roads, likely 2-lane roads, in different locations. And this is a potential of where some of them might be. So I think that's important.
I'll just say a lot of the blame for the confusion on that road is on me. I mean, and it wasn't intentional because we put a road in there. We don't change the line weight and say from what a state road, but it's simply the line weight on the drawing. And the line weights were equal, but it's a 2-lane road versus a 80 to 100 foot right-of-way state road. And it's just two totally different roads. But also within there are the detail of those sections. So that was very clearly in there saying this is a 2-lane road with typical subdivision kind of development as opposed to a state road. But I know there was some question about where that was on us. And we were able to talk about that at the community meeting and made the point that it's exactly what that road was. And it's not a big road moving to the river.
And I'll say I did the same thing when I first looked at this and said, oh, Hearn Road is moving to the river. And that's not.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
But it's, so just things to keep in mind as we go forward to.
The first thing I'm going to keep in mind is to never revise a small area plan after I get one approved.
I did. Well, I just
may not be possible, but if I come in with one, just I'm giving Randy permission to shoot me.
One thing I wanted to highlight also, or that we continue to think about as subdivision plans comes in, is transit stops. Transit is going to be more and more important. There is shown maybe this is it. Yeah. So some removal of those transit stops or where they're not indicated. I know that's based on some conversations with Chatham Transit and things like that, but I think more dense development in certain areas with transit connection is going to be incredibly important as we go forward, and especially as we get the shuttles going in Pittsburgh. So we'll keep that in mind as we go forward.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you clearing this up for me, Chuck, about the residential adoption versus non-residential adoption. And I know my tendency at first.
Absorption, you mean?
Absorption, yes. Thank you. My tendency was to try and get through all of this material that's changing and not look at table 8.3 that is not in here, but just to be close.
Since it didn't change, it was not in the. I got you.
So, but what that means is that the non-residential adoption rate is not proposed to be change or is not projected to change, even with the changes in the.
We're not trying to change it, but I'll just refer to something you said 2 minutes ago about how conditions change. And office today is different than what it was pre-COVID. And office and retail is different than pre-Amazon. And it's so different now in how we buy. And there's, it's something we've got to figure out, I think, but, we're not, and we've also said that we've got to get houses on the ground and rooftops on the ground before people are talking to us about coming in with non-residential, but it's a changing dynamic that we've got to be aware of. I think there were some comments we're not trying to reduce anything here. Maybe in this proposal, we're showing density shifting along to where the hospital was. And we're proposing vertical mixed use development there that would have both non-residential and residential. And we were at the same breakfast the other morning, and it's talking about how from a tax base and a tax valuation standpoint that apartments were produced more tax revenue than a Walmart did, for example. So that was interesting to me. We're going to look into that more seriously, but I understand your point.
Okay. And I think the other point about density in specific areas is it's better in, most cases for transit, for ecological reasons, for tax value reasons, infrastructure, all of those things. It's preferable to have essentially nodes there. So I think a couple of the typos and things that I had brought up to you and staff. So those in the final version.
So next time when we do this again in 2 weeks, maybe we can just focus on the typos that night and nothing else.
It's probably unlikely. I'll pass to.
I don't have any questions. We met 2 weeks ago and I asked you all the questions I could possibly come up. I want to do it again. Thank you.
And thank you for doing that too.
I don't have any particular questions other than about the medical village. What was the medical village? I guess a lot of people may be concerned that you're going to change that from being some type a business to more so residential. And from the comments that were made, it appears that is what you are thinking, that you're changing a lot of this to become more so residential than business. And I feel like that is one of the concerns.
Well, let me share what I think is being said, and you see if it's what you think also. When you look at the drawing in front of you, the original had section 6.1 is all blue, and that was allowing no residential. And now 6.2 is a mixed use. It allows residential and non-residential. But with the hospital shifting from with the medical area, the medical district shifting from 6.1 down to 5.2, that said we need to look at how we treat the village center a little differently. And back to your point about transit and everything else, with Chatham Parkway is a great transit corridor for us to be locating density on. And so 6.1 originally did not allow residential in that area. So it was just redistributing those areas based on that shift of the medical district to allow a village center that's going to be more of a mixed use. The orange represents a mixed use color as purely all residential or purely all non-residential. And so I think people were saying just because it shifted from blue to orange, therefore there's less non-residential. But there, in many ways, you need that. If you look at, I don't know how many times you go out around the triangle and see. Even in Mosaic, they're looking at getting, because of the popularity of the lawn and the venue in there, people want to live next to that. And so trying to provide those opportunities is happening at Park West Village in Morrisville. They've been adding apartments around that thing in 2 or 3 different locations beyond what their original plan had for them. And it's all because our lifestyles now want to be around food and beverage. And so trying to get residential in those areas is what that's trying to do.
Okay, thank you. Now, I did see where the school, I think that was on 7, is moved to 7.1.
Next to where we were talking about the park, it's on the other side of the stream from the park. So again, we've been trying to keep these adjacent to parks and hope that the school system and the town will look at sharing different parts of what they do, but I can't control that, but all I can do is try to locate them next to each other. And we've come to it, we've got it pretty close to final detail on exactly the land area they're going to have, and it's approximately 25 acres or so.
That was the one they chose.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I have some more questions, but I'll let someone
You know
else.
where to find me if you want to ask them outside of this, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks.
When you come back in 2 weeks.
Before now.
Oh, you're gonna, in other words, you're not going to bother me outside of this. You're going to wait for the 2.
No.
Okay.
But I don't have any additional ones at this time. Any additional questions from commissioners, issues?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll interject. I was reminded there may have been individuals on the Zoom link that wanted to give comment, but we're not clear on how to do that. So I'll ask Colby if there's appeared to still be any members on the Zoom that may want to make comment.
No, sir, nobody has raised their hand. However, if you do wish to speak, you just raise your hand using the Zoom feature. No hands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I do think in the future for meeting flow, it would be helpful if we had the comments on this item near this item. I think this discussion would be helpful for the people that have already left to hear too. Of course, it is online, hopefully with audio. But I think if we have those comments close to applications, they can hear that in our discussion. I think that'd be really beneficial for the public that's commenting on this item, like we do a public hearing, even though it's typically that same process.
Well, thank you all. Is there any additional comments, concerns? Any issues anyone on the board wants to bring up? And if they're not, then we can call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.